Ryan, well, I know we were going to kind of touch base about some of your marketing efforts, right? To kind of work more on developing your practice. What kind of work are you doing now? And I know you're looking to work with more young adults, right? And kind of more intensive therapy.
Yeah, I think younger adults is it's a population I work well with. I have a lot of experience and be most helpful to people in a longer term therapy, especially with the kind of work that I do. It's more oriented towards helping people address maybe the issues that underlie long term.
A little bit about what are some of the challenges of getting that message out there, right? I mean, you have some availability, you take some insurances, you were able to help people kind of in a longer term kind of personal growth change process, right? What do you think in terms of like getting that message out? What are some of the barriers? I know we talked about a few ideas of how to do that.
I know there's things out there, but it's like Psychology Today or good therapy, and
Right.
those help, but it's become apparent that there's a need to do more.
For sure. And that's a good point. I think you're right that most of the time, as therapists, as clinicians, we're thinking a lot about how do I connect and help a certain person or certain patient, and not as much, we usually don't have as much experience in terms of, okay, well, how do I develop a referral network? Or how do I stay in touch with the referral network? Or
Yeah.
how do I connect with a broader audience? You know what I mean? And so I know we were talking about some ideas around like mentioning the work you do to colleagues, or
Mhm.
maybe making some outreach to some people in the community, maybe even
Mhm.
doing some presentations. And how's that going for you so far? Are there
So I'm kind of newer to the area, or I'm from here, but I was away for a long time, and I'm
for
really
sure?
rebuilding my personal and professional network. Yeah, finding um, colleagues, having them keeping yourself and what you do and your availability in their mind is an important part of the work too, right? And like I've been um, in contact more with the psychiatric providers at this clinic, like
Oh, I
reaching
see.
out about
Right.
getting referrals, but also like um, collaborating on patients, which is an important part of the work, anyways.
What I find helps me is when I think of it not just in terms of marketing, but connecting with people or relationships or getting to know people, I find it to be somewhat easier because marketing feels like a sales pitch versus the work we're talking about is more how do you genuinely either help get a helpful message out, kind of like why therapy can be helpful or how long-term therapy could help, for example, right? Or how what kind of changes one can achieve in kind of a more psychodynamic approach. But it's really, we also talk about relationships. Connecting with colleagues is both can be rewarding and help with your professional network. That kind of mindset sometimes helps them make it more digestible for me and more manageable. You and I talked before, kind of off the air, about trying to come up with like a calendar. What kind of things can I do during the week or
Mm-hmm.
monthly? Or because I find that, if I have a routine, it's kind of easier to stick to it than if I'm just occasionally doing things.
Calendar certainly helpful, just having a list of tasks, and then doing the things that seem clear and feasible, like reaching out, like what I did last month, writing the letter to the
Yeah.
NP group at Start My Wellness, reaching out to individual providers to set up collaboration, working on like a potential blog post.
Once you start making some of these efforts and you see them paying off, or you see that they can kind of add to your practice, I think that makes it also somewhat more easier. It's kind of motivating, if you kind of, let's say with the blog post, you could share it with some colleagues, your professional network. Hopefully they respond or give you some positive feedback or say, oh yes, I'm glad you sent me this. I'm keeping you in mind for potential referrals. All that
Yeah.
stuff kind of like that sort of positive reinforcement, I think, can keep us on track. Like, okay, yeah, I can see how that's working, or I can see how that's leading to some referrals or new connections I hadn't had before. And that
Mhm.
kind of can keep one in the loop of continuing to do it. I mean, that's part of our idea is also sort of walking the path with you or helping to kind of do the tasks together when possible to try
Mhm.
to make it less isolating, less of an
Yeah,
obstacle to overcome, but more like a part of your routine.
it's definitely possible to feel a bit more isolated with the kind of work we do. But yeah, it really helps to feel connected to a network of colleagues, but also, like the community and community organizations. And
For sure. That makes a lot of sense.
mhm.
Um, okay, well, I mean, I just thought we could kind of touch base a little bit about some of, your work on the marketing side, and to your point, yeah, kind of like it is kind of in a larger sense, it's marketing, but in a more, it's a very genuine type of approach where you're trying to say, here's something that could be helpful. You'd
Mhm.
like people in the community to know more about it, and they could decide for themselves if they're willing to kind of try working with you and see how it goes. So I think it's a very genuine, thoughtful message that, people would likely want to hear. So,
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
sounds good. Well, Ryan, thanks for making the time. We'll continue to work, on this, and let's collaborate and try to make and help you kind of make progress.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay, sounds good. Take care.